The Human Experience. Inside the Humanities at Stanford University. humanexperience.stanford.edu.
You're listening to Philosophy Talk, coming to you from the Marsh Theater here in San Francisco, California. I'm John Perry, and with me is Ken Taylor.
And we're joined now by Irv Yalom. He's Professor Emeritus of Psychology from Stanford University, author of many, many things. He's a world-renowned author of novels and books and of all sorts. But pertinent to our today's topic, staring at the sun, overcoming the terror of death. Irv, welcome back to Philosophy Talk.
Thanks very much. Glad to be here.
Irv, as is clear in your wonderful book here, which, it's quite attractive, make a great gift, available at your local bookstore. But to start over for the sake of our recording artists, Irv, as is made clear in your book, Staring at the Sun, you deal with many people who are struggling to find a way to cope with the prospect of death and their feelings about it. Frankly, don't you find that part of your practice sort of depressing?
No, I don't, because of several things that I think some of which you've already alluded to. The whole question. First of all, I just want to say that the title of this book, the subtitle, is Overcoming the Terror of Death. And that's very deliberately chosen. I didn't say Overcoming the Anxiety of Death, because that's what my publishers wanted, because that would appeal to everybody. But I'm really speaking of work with patients who've instructed this book in terms of the fear of death becoming to overwhelm them, becoming to permeate all of their life, stripping away the pleasure, breaking through into nightmares, things, because immediately they think this will all turn to dust, so this will turn to ashes. So I think that the actual anxiety about dying is hardwired into us. I don't think we can eradicate it. But what's more, I think that thinking about that is something that we can do that will absolutely enliven the way that we live. So I think that the facing death is something that will awaken us to perhaps a different way to live.
So you've mentioned some of the different forms that the terror of death takes. When does this tend to come about? Does it occur at different times, at different ages? Does it occur as a result of some traumatic experience, or is it always your 50th birthday and bang?
Well, how do you locate it? Or your comment about 50th birthday. I think big birthdays are something that I always look for in therapy. 30 or 40 or 50, a birthday that really is quite significant to people, because there's usually a lot of anxiety. They may not tie it much to that. Very mistakenly we have the idea that birthdays are a cause for celebration. We have birthday parties, but think about it. Really, they should be condolence meetings so big birthdays are a way of helping people get into some of these areas. Maybe the most violent one, of course, is a very severe illness. We get a diagnosis of maybe a potentially fatal illness. That will certainly raise these issues, these fears, these terrors. Another one may be the loss of someone. That's something we too often, I think therapists too often overlook in the field.
So Irv, let me interrupt you for a second. So you made a distinction between this kind of low-grade anxiety that I talked about in the opening that's there, and you said it's hardwired, which seems right, and this screaming terror kind of thing. But don't you think we're all kind of liable to this screaming terror at any moment? Because life is pretty chancy. I mean, you lose your child, you lose your parent, and suddenly you're struck with, the limits of your own mortality. You're struck in a vivid way, and this low-grade anxiety is there, but it just it just tunes up, right? Aren't we all subject to this?
Yeah, I think we're all subject to it, but there are times that we are thrown into this. Too many deaths, for example. We're confronted with this. You know, let me tell you an experience that I had. I wanted to find a way when I was writing some of my early works about existential therapy. I wanted to find a way to help people talk about this so I could learn about it. And I couldn't find a way to help my general patients talk about death. So I decided I'd try working with people who had to talk about it, who had a terminal diagnosis. So for almost a decade, I worked with people who were dying of cancer. But contrary to what I expected, there are a significant number of people who did not simply get numbed with despair about that. There are some people who suddenly began to change. You know, we could think of it as a burst of personal growth. I think of it as an awakening experience.
Right. We'll dig into that a bit more, that awakening experience. You talk about that a lot in your book.
The Human Experience. Inside the Humanities at Stanford University. humanexperience.stanford.edu